This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Your war room for insider news and draft analysis from deep within the confines of Cowboys headquarters at the Star in Frisco.
The Dallas Cowboys select Tyler Smith.
And now, your host, Kyle Yeomans.
Today is Wednesday, March 1st, 2023, as we are live from Indianapolis, Indiana, and the 2023 NFL Combine. Welcome into the Draft Show presented by Miller Lite, the official beer of the Dallas Cowboys. We are pleased to be joined by the great Bucky Brooks.
What's going on, man?
How's it going?
What's happening?
Back
so
on the
good.
show?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
We've got Aisha Morrison. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Our trio today, the first show of a couple that we're going to have here at the Combine on Radio Row this week. We'll have Dane Brugler in the action later this week as well. But Bucky, welcome back. It's been probably a year, right?
Yeah, it's been. I think it's been a year.
It's been a year
since I've had a chance to come on with you guys, but it's a lot of fun.
What's been going on?
Not too much, same old thing. I mean, at this time of year, it's lying season. Everyone's lying about who they like, who they don't like. We kind of filling in things, and we're having soap operas with mock drafts and stuff like that, so we can create conversation. So you know what it is.
So, lying season, has anybody lied to you yet? There's no way, right?
Oh, everybody's lying now. Like, once you get to the Combine, everybody's lying about who they really like. They're throwing out names out there so you can run with them and put them out there and all kinds of stuff. And so if it's not the teams, then it's the agents. If it's not the agents, it's the players themselves. And so you know what it is. Like, that's the part of the year.
Dang, that's what it is?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, welcome to lying season.
I don't want to be.
Yes.
It's new to me.
Yep. You got to take everything with a grain of salt.
Okay.
You got to take everything with you got to be confident in your own mindset. You got to be confident with all of that. And you have been, as we've seen on the draft shows already. We've already seen that a couple different times. But we're excited to be here. This is my fourth Combine. This is your, going all the way back.
Like, you better tell my business. So don't be telling
Your first was the playing career, right?
So since 2001 to now, so that's like 22, 23, plus one, so like 23, 24 that we're working on.
Woo!
It's a long time.
And Aisha?
This is my first one. This is my first Combine. Brand new.
Yeah, we're getting it started. You
Went
get it
behind
popping.
the ears a little bit.
Yeah, you get to see the workouts tomorrow.
Yep.
Kind of get it going. That'll be your first taste of what it is. And look, it's a great event. It's for the longest time, it was always like the football convention. It's the only time that everyone has a chance to see everybody until coaches decided that they didn't want to bring their coaching staffs. But it was a great opportunity to not only talk about like these players or whatever, but it was a chance to talk about trends in the league, how you build your team, what do you like, schematics, all this other stuff. We're robbed of some of that because people are staying at home. But it's still a really, really great affair because you get a chance to see so many guys that you don't see during the course of the regular season.
Somebody yesterday really put it out in the open for me that kind of put it into perspective. But this is the only time that the NFL comes together, like you said, in one spot, and nobody's trying to win.
No.
Nobody's trying to beat the other at something. At either even the Pro Bowl. Maybe the Pro Bowl is probably the closest thing to this.
But you don't get all the teams. You don't get the executives, scouts, and the coaches together in one city. And I do like that's why I'm a little disappointed that so many teams decided to leave their coaches behind. Because it was that one time that you could see everybody and connect and all those other things. And you don't get a chance to do it because once we leave from here, you don't see those guys anymore. Maybe you see a handful of guys at a pro day. You see them during a game, but you won't see everybody. And so hopefully, man, we get everybody back. Get everybody back.
Cowboys did bring their coaching staff. They did bring their executive department. So the front office is here. The scouts are here. The coaches are here. We will talk to Coach McCarthy today. So we won't have that information on this episode, but we'll talk about it on the second episode that we have coming out from Radio Row from Indianapolis. Now, it is your first Combine.
It is.
So what's your thoughts so far? What have you taken out of the first couple days of being here?
First couple days of being here, I think I described it yesterday as like a high school reunion. It's everybody come in and you meeting everyone. It's interesting to see everyone in their own niche. Like our photographers have their own group of people they meet up with, and they're talking mess about what they're doing. And then I meet some of your reporter friends, and then it's just an interesting dynamic. I've gained so much respect for everyone and every piece that goes into what we do by being here. I think I've already done that, but just kind of hearing the intricacies of like, I have to be here at this time. I got to set up at this time. And we're just, to me, I'm just taking notes, getting ready.
Sure.
But they don't want to do it. We do, and vice versa. And I just think that's so awesome. Like, that everyone has their individual thing here, and we can kind of see it come together here. Me personally, getting to see it.
Yeah, I think the best part of this is what happens late at night. Like when you really have the casual conversations.
Yes.
Like that's the part of it. Like people are talking about it being a little spring breakish because everyone's at the bar or whatever. But really, in the cut, sometimes you have some great conversations about team building, who you like, evaluations. What do you look for? What have you learned from this mistake or that mistake when it came to scouting and evaluating? So, to me, I feel like I come away from the combine not necessarily learning about this class, but continue to learn about how to evaluate, how to put together a team, what it looks like, what it's going to look like in the future as you continue to be the best version of yourself when it comes to doing what we do on this side.
Now, you've done a little bit of everything because you played, you've been on the coaching side of things, the scouting side of things. You've also been on the media side of things, doing a ton of great work with the NFL Network. What is your favorite to do? I mean, other than playing. I mean, that's probably the easy answer.
It's funny because there's so many different things to football that you enjoy.
Yeah.
There's the X and O nerd in me that loves like watching tactics and schemes and the latest trends and who's doing what. And man, look at how the Eagles were able to help Jalen Hurts go from being a second-round pick to now he may be a top-5 quarterback based on how they utilized him, how he continued to improve, but how they tweaked the game and, those things. And then you look at a guy like Pat Mahomes and how can you remove an all-pro player from Pat Mahomes and yet this team goes and wins the Super Bowl? What did I miss on him watching him at Texas Tech that I didn't know he had that singular power to do those things? The evaluation part is always cool, like looking, studying, projecting, seeing what those projections turn into 2, 3, 4 years down the line. All that stuff is fun. I just think like just being associated with the game itself is the fun part in any capacity. And when you are like multidimensional like we all are, like different things fascinate you at different times of the year. And so right now I'm just fascinated about, hey, how do you put together the team, the best team that you can put forward to get ready to see if you can compete for a championship in 2023.
Go for it.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm actually fascinated listening to the players, like getting to put what I think about them or what I've studied about them, just actually hearing how they speak, how they project, who's had influence on them and stuff like that. That, to me, is so valuable, really starting to understand these guys a little bit more because the character is important, right? The character part about the players is important. So we're starting to, I don't know, just hearing them and even getting the opportunity to interview them, ask them questions, and be here it means something to me also, some of these players that I'm interested in.
Well, I mean, I think that part is huge because it's one thing to blindly look at tape without knowing the person.
Yeah.
So you're looking at the tape and you see one thing, but then when you hear them talk or you find out more about their background, their character, some issues that they may or may not have had, then you get a better feel for, okay, well, how do we now put the pieces of the puzzle together? And what's different for us, what's different for me, like at NFL Network, like you're trying to think about all 32 teams. You guys are tied directly with the team, the Dallas Cowboys.
No doubt.
So now you have a better understanding of the culture in the locker room.
Yes.
You have an understanding of, okay, well, how would this guy fit in that locker room? Which is harder when you're having the broad perspective of, well, what's Dallas really like compared to what's Philly like, what's Washington, and all those other teams. And so it's just a very different deal. And also the way you grade players is differently working for a team as opposed to doing the broad scope. Because when you work for a team, you have certain parameters and standards that you're looking for based on what the team wants in a player. When you're working at a higher level or at a national level, now you're just kind of grading the player for what he is And sometimes that differs from, hey, if he goes to this team, he'll play this way. If he goes to that team, he'll play a different way.
Is he going to fit in this scheme? Is he not going to fit in this scheme? How's he going to perform? We were literally just talking about that. Just 3-4-4-3 defense and how some guys may not look like they can play there. I mean, Dan Quinn showed this. He showed, like, there's so many guys on the Cowboys defense in particular that before being in this scheme, we didn't know what they were. I mean, we didn't know how they were going to project or what their ceiling was, but that just speaks to how scheme-specific things can make a difference in this league.
Yeah, look, the one thing that we can never project is how coaching and schematics matter.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
A great coach, a creative mind, a brilliant teacher can bring out stuff in players that we just don't know. You just can't. You can't predict the kind of scheme that they play in and how they're utilized, the role that they play. Those things matter. And so the hard part is trying to see what a player did in college and trying to stretch it out and project what it will look like at the next level without knowing how the team that's taking him envisions him playing.
Yeah. And the whole overarching thought of the player, like you talked about with these interviews, it all kind of becomes clear this week. Because not only are we getting the chance to talk to the players, and we're having these media sessions, and they're hitting the podium, and we're learning about some of the things that they've talked about, some of the things that they feel like are important to them. These teams are doing the same exact thing. They're putting them on the whiteboard. We heard D. Overshone earlier talking about the Texas linebacker, talking about how teams have put him on the board and allowed him to take a dry erase marker and show exactly what he's seen on film and how he can pick certain things up. These teams are not only having those interviews behind closed doors, but they're also having the medical checks. That's a huge part of this whole process, is having that 1-2 punch of the interviews and the medical checks to kind of go back and forth. Have you seen enough from this class to really feel like it compares to something that, or some other class that you've seen in the past, based off of all of those overarching elements?
You know, it's hard to compare classes, but what you can assess is the draft is, I would say, not as top heavy as it's been in the past, but you got a lot of mid-level talent. Meaning,
that's really good.
It's really deep in terms of second and third round players. You get starters in those rounds. First rounders. I think what we all are going to have to kind of temper expectations. In this class, I think they're probably like 15 to 18 true first-round talents.
Okay.
And so when you have 18 first-round talents, that means someone's going to take a player in the first round who's not necessarily your traditional blue-chip player. But when you take him in the first round, fans have expectations that they're going to play a certain way. The team will even find themselves having certain expectations that they're going to play at a higher level because they were taken in the first round, when that might not be what's really in them. And so we have to kind of understand that, and maybe we don't get upset when our favorite team takes a cornerback, and you're like, well, why did we take a cornerback when we need an offensive tackle? Or we need a pass rusher and those things. And so we just kind of have to understand the strength lies in tight end class is solid, and cornerback class is solid. There's a really group of running backs in the mid-levels that can always play. And then you got some wild cards, like the quarterback class. Who knows what this quarterback class is? And good thing Cowboys are not hunting for a quarterback, because who knows what this class is.
Depends on who you ask, Bucky. Depends on who you ask.
I know.
You know how they get. You know how everybody gets.
I know, but
I agree with you, by the way.
But it's a weird deal when it comes to that. Like, not as many offensive tackles that you would like, because it's not as deep in that class, and so it's going to change how you evaluate it. What teams will do is the draft, the parts that are like plentiful, what you do is you'll circle back to that. You go and get something from a shallow pool early and come back late and maybe take a chance on a position that has a deeper pool.
You mentioned quarterback. Do either one of you feel like I feel like there's a need for quarterback? I mean, you look at the NFC specifically, like there's so many teams that really need to be building towards having a quarterback. And we talked about this class. When you talk about how many first-round draft picks that you really feel like there are, do you think we could see people not necessarily reach, but definitely
they gonna reach.
Do the okay? Well, man,
they reach, like people.
They're
reaching.
People reach for. Yeah. I mean, I really feel like in this first round. So to your point, how we might see some guys like we don't think that our first-round draft picks. I feel like some of the gentlemen that maybe we think are second-round draft picks may be picked up earlier in the rounds because there's not that many of them in certain places like you were talking about.
No, it's funny, and there's a level of desperation.
Especially guard.
So the one thing that we know when it comes to the quarterbacks, the golden era quarterback play now has skewed younger and is really heavy in the AFC.
Yes, it is.
To win a Super Bowl in the AFC, you better have a dude at quarterback. Because to win in the AFC, you have to deal with Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. Lamar Jackson will put an asterisk by because we don't know if he'll continue to be in Baltimore.
Sure.
You have Trevor Lawrence, who is coming.
He's coming up.
And so, like, we're already talking about 6 or 7 quarterbacks right there. The NFC, Aaron Rodgers is coming down, but it's really wide open. Like, now you have to talk about Jalen Hurts, which is crazy, but a year ago, no one believed this. But Jalen Hurts now has to be in consideration as a top 5 quarterback.
When he showed that this year, no doubt.
So now you talk about, well, dang, Jalen Hurts is now the standard bearer in the NFC. And Aaron Rodgers is coming back to the pack. You have Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff and those guys, but how good are those? And so you now have a situation where everyone in the NFC has to look at their quarterback and say, is he good enough to not only get me to the Super Bowl, but if we have to square off against one of those teams in the AFC that has one of those guys, can he win a one-game scenario?
All right, Bucky, based off of that, do you think Dak falls into that category?
I think so. I think the one thing that we can't do, and it's unfortunate for players, when a player has an injury, we never give them or cut them slack.
Okay.
Whatever happened with Dak's thumb, like it certainly had to have an impact on the way that he threw the ball because he normally doesn't throw turnover. He doesn't have turnovers like that. And sometimes it can snowball and those things. The other thing that I think maybe you'll have to assess when you're Mike McCarthy and you're thinking about this offense as he takes over, do I have enough weaponry on the outside?
Say that.
And so you remove Amari Cooper for whatever reason. So now you go from having what I thought was 1A and 1B in CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper to now you have CeeDee Lamb and then a significant drop-off before you have the next wide receiver. And what you're seeing in this league is moving away from like the running back being the feature player, but more you better have 2 wide receivers that can get it done because in the games when you get down the stretch, someone has to come over and someone has to have the ability to have one of those big games. And right now, the Cowboys need more around Dak than just that. And I know that Dak got $40 million, but he still needs pass catchers to be able to kind of do what he does.
Yeah, and to add on to that, it's also, too, do you have playmakers? But if you don't have the playmakers, are you doing enough with the guys that you have? Are you getting the most out of them? Are you utilizing them in ways that are conducive to how well they play or what even is working well in the league right now? We see a lot of guys with ability really making a difference at the wide receiver position. So I just wanted to add on to, like, are you getting the most out of even what you have presently there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a big thing. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why Mike McCarthy is now kind of taking the reins over as the play caller. Now, I would say based on his experience in Green Bay, some of the yak ability that you talk about, it may change the profile of the wide receiver that you look for. In Green Bay, when he was there, the way that it has always been passed down from Ron Wolf down, your wide receivers need to have punt return ability. And the reason why they wanted guys who had punt return experience is because those guys have natural running skills. They're tough. They are able to break tackles in space. You can get them the ball on catch and run concepts, and they can turn short gains into big plays. CeeDee Lamb has punt return ability. Do the rest of the guys in the wide receiver core have punt return ability? And if they don't, you need to add some guys who have that. So now Dak's efficiency can go up because rather than asking them to throw the ball farther down the field, it's shorter, but you're getting more bang for your buck because those guys can break tackles and make things happen.
Yeah, so what you're saying is, Bucky, is that Kevontae Turpin might have a chance in this offense. He might have a chance, but
the only thing about that, he's so good as a returner.
He is. Maybe you don't want a chance him getting
sometimes because
up.
Some offensive coaches will use the return game as another offensive play.
Yeah, it's an extension.
And when you're an all-pro player like he is, he's a difference maker. That said, they certainly can put a package in where he comes in the game and he gets the ball on screens and those things. He has to be a part of it, though. He's too dangerous with the ball in his hands to let him just stand on the sideline the entire game.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. And he's even talked about that as well. I mean, he said, I want to play on offense. He said that a couple weeks ago in an interview that he loves the return specialist gig, but for the most part, he wants to make an impact on offense, and he could probably find a way to make an impact on offense, especially if they can use some of the stuff Bucky's talking about here. But let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to have some Twitter on the 20. We're going to answer your fan questions coming back. Who are some of the players that we haven't talked about yet that we should be talking about? We're also going to get Bucky's thoughts on the Cowboys draft strategy on what maybe they should do moving forward. More Draft Show coming up in just a minute, presented by Miller Lite.
Candidate. No tax experience? We also offer in-person tax school courses locally. Liberty Tax has 79 locations across DFW and 2,300 offices nationwide. Learn more about our job opportunities at libertytax.com/hiring or call your local Liberty Tax office today.
Craving something flavorful? Replace that bloated burrito feeling with Smoothie King's new Power Meal Smoothies. With 3 delicious flavors like cinnamon banana, blueberry raspberry, and spinach pineapple, you can fill up on flavor, not calories. Each meal replacement smoothie is packed with 20 grams of protein, 7 grams of fiber, and 23 vitamins and minerals, all under 350 calories with 0 grams of added sugar. So next time you want something flavorful, swap fast food for a Power Meal Smoothie. Order today on the Smoothie King app. Smoothie King, the official smoothie of the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm Darren Woodson, former Dallas Cowboy player and Super Bowl champion. When I played in the NFL at a high level, I relied on my vision to see the field. As I started getting older, I noticed my vision wasn't as good, and I was getting frustrated from wearing my glasses all day. I went to Laser Care Eye Center, and Dr. G talked about all the options. Thanks to technology and Laser Care Eye Center, I can see near, far, and between. Don't fumble your vision any longer. Visit them at dfweyes.com and tell them Darren sent you. They got me back on my game.
What do you call a group of grown men and women with their faces painted silver and blue who get together every week to share a 3-hour-long ritual of jumping, singing, and toasting Miller Lite and 10-gallon hats while yelling, "How about them Cowboys?" You call it Miller Time in Dallas. Here's to the Cowboys. Here's to the original light beer. It's Miller Time. Celebrate responsibly. 2021 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
Hey Cowboys fans, if you're looking for a full-time or part-time job, check out Liberty Tax, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys. If you've got tax experience and want to help your community with their finances, you're the perfect candidate. No tax experience? We also offer in-person tax school courses locally. Liberty Tax has 79 locations across DFW and 2,300 offices nationwide. Learn more about our job opportunities at libertytax.com/hiring or call your local Liberty Tax office today.
Craving something flavorful? Replace that bloated burrito feeling with Smoothie King's new Power Meal Smoothies. With 3 delicious flavors like cinnamon banana, blueberry raspberry, and spinach pineapple, you can fill up on flavor, not calories. Each meal replacement smoothie is packed with 20 grams of protein, 7 grams of fiber, and 23 vitamins and minerals, all under 350 calories with 0 grams of added sugar. So next time you want something flavorful, swap fast food for a Power Meal Smoothie. Order today on the Smoothie King app. Smoothie King, the official smoothie of the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm Darren Woodson, former Dallas Cowboy player and Super Bowl champion. When I played in the NFL at a high level, I relied on my vision to see the field. As I started getting older, I noticed my...
Back here from Radio Row in Indianapolis for the 2022 NFL Scouting Combine. It's the Draft Show presented by Miller Lite. Alongside Aisha Morrison, I'm Kyle Yeomans, joined by NFL Network's very own analyst, Bucky Brooks. And we've spent some time talking about the generics around the Combine and what we can kind of expect throughout the week. I want to talk about this class a little bit. We're going to do so with a little bit of Twitter on the 20. Our fans, of course, sending questions through Twitter. And we'll start with this one. Who are we not talking about that we should be talking about?
On the 20.
I was getting frustrated from wearing my glasses all day. I went to Laser Care.
Part of the show in the past, we go through names like crazy. But is there anything kind of off the radar that I think we should be talking about? And it can be Cowboys related, or it could just be overall in the draft.
I would say a couple names.
Twitter on the 20.
From
Tennessee
quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't think people are talking about him enough. I think there's a fascination over Will Levis and Anthony Richardson.
Kentucky, Will Levis, Florida, Anthony Richardson.
Quarterback from Kentucky, quarterback from Florida, respectively, where we're talking about their tools and all that other stuff. But the game is about how you play it. And I don't know if there are many that play the game better than Hendon Hooker at quarterback. People are talking about the age. He's 26 years old, but at quarterback, that doesn't necessarily matter because quarterbacks can play until they're 40. We've seen it. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get someone on the field who has experience. He's an experienced player. So he's one. Andre Carter, the edge rusher, edge defender from Army, is another one that I believe deserves a little more love just in terms of 6'10 wingspan. 2 seasons ago, he had 15.5 sacks at West Point. And if you've seen Army play, they're not loaded with blue-chip guys. And so the fact that they have him, a super freak athlete who's also a very productive player, he's someone who also deserves a lot of attention.
That's interesting you bring up the quarterbacks because, we made the joke earlier that quarterback is not a conversation, depending on who you talk to. It's not a conversation in the first round, but it's definitely a conversation. Cooper Rush is an unrestricted free agent.
Yes.
He's been your backup for quite some time now. You turn around and you can talk about the back half of this contract with Dak Prescott now. He's got 2 years left on this deal heading into this year, and that's if they don't extend him, if they don't restructure him. So quarterback is on the table in terms of mid-round draft picks. That's where you're going to find a Hendon Hooker. Anthony Richardson's not going to be there in the mid-rounds. Will Levis is not going to be there in the mid-rounds. A Hendon Hooker, a Jake Haener from Fresno State. There are a couple guys there that are going to be there in the middle rounds, and that's where the Cowboys could potentially target it.
And the Cowboys should target it because you can never go wrong being in the quarterback business.
Sure.
We've seen a lot of people laughed and snickered when the Philadelphia Eagles said that they wanted to have a quarterback factory when Carson Wentz had just signed that major contract. And they drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round, and lo and behold, Jalen Hurts is the one that leads them back to a Super Bowl. And so you can never go wrong. If it's the most important position in football, you want to make sure you invest in that position. And so allocating resources every other year to make sure that you have a slew of young quarterbacks that are developing is something that makes sense. And also for McCarthy, that is something that he knows. He's talked about the quarterback school and all the things that they used to do yesteryear. I could see him wanting to get back to that to make sure that you always have someone in the hopper.
I also don't think, I want to say, there's nothing wrong with quarterbacks coming in and developing.
No.
And sitting behind. I think we've gotten so used to these guys coming out and being immediate playmakers, immediately making a difference, that it puts some pressure on these young guys to come in and be the playmakers right away. No, there's absolutely nothing wrong with these gentlemen coming in, playing behind someone, and really starting to develop the game and learn it, as they're in the NFL.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, and what has happened is we've become increasingly less patient.
Microwave. I call it microwave.
With young players, and particularly quarterbacks, we want young quarterbacks to come off the college field and immediately have an impact on the game.
Not fair.
And it's really, really hard. The one thing that it won't change the narrative, but everyone will be on the search for, you're going to hear this a ton. Everyone's looking for the next Brock Purdy. Everyone's looking for the next guy that is taken on day 3 that has the ability to start. I would say that
it was
Brock
Dak
Purdy,
initially.
Yes.
Dak was that guy for a couple of years.
Dak was that guy.
Yeah.
And so others are going to look for the cost-efficient, cheap quarterback that is good enough to play and have success. The common denominator between Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy, played a long time in college.
Yep.
A lot of snaps, a lot of experience. That experience allowed them to develop a level of expertise that when they had their opportunity to play right away as rookies, they took advantage of it.
Do you have anybody that fits that mold in this draft class based off of what you've seen?
Well, you talked about 2 guys. You talked about Haener from Fresno State.
Talk about Moxie. He's in that conversation.
I mean, he certainly is in that conversation.
Experience.
He's the one that everyone's that talks about. You talk about Hooker, who's a 6-year player. It has to be someone who has played a ton because you're seeing the experience. Brock Purdy was like a 4-year starter, 4-year starter at Iowa State. All those snaps, all those reps matter. Kenny Pickett, first-round pick last year. He had a significant amount of experience before he comes to the National Football League. And so that's what you're looking for. You're looking for someone who's played a lot because that play, that ability to see things, process things, work through things, helps them when they get to the pros.
I'm looking down the list at the moment, and I'm seeing Clayton Tune Houston. You talk about a blinking light for somebody that would fit the Cowboys mold. It would fit the value of a day 3 guy and has that experience and the leadership ability. He's done so in multiple programs throughout, but he's coming out of Houston.
Yeah, he certainly has, and he's done it a ton. He does have that experience, and everyone has kind of circled those guys because what happens in our league, it's a copycat league. So when teams see Team C, like you remember last year, the buzz at this time was, I got to find a Debo Samuel. I got to find a versatile player that can do a bunch of different things.
Debo or Micah on the defensive side.
Can do all these things or whatever. So now it's the Brock Purdy conversation is going to be that. And it's not only Brock Purdy, but then it's also going to be the Jalen Hurts. Who's the underrated, undervalued quarterback that has the intangibles to work at his game and get better and become a guy that emerges from day 2, day 3 status to being a legitimate starter that can lead a team.
Yeah, and you mentioned Hendon Hooker. One thing that I like about him and I think is going to suit him in this league is his ability to improvise. I think a lot of teams are starting to look for quarterbacks that have the ability to improvise, number one, because offensive line play is
hard.
That's a story for another day.
It's hard.
It is. It's absolutely hard. Those guys don't get as much time. I understand. But that is something a quality that I think is really important for most of the guys that are playing the quarterback position moving forward. How do you improvise? How do you play on the run? Mm-hmm. How do you pass on the run? How's your accuracy on the run? Because a lot of these guys are running for their life sometimes, so it's important.
They are. Two things about that point. So coaches would tell you that you want a quarterback who is athletic. And so you got to make sure that it's not necessarily the athlete that's playing quarterback, but you want a quarterback that's polished at quarterback play, but has the athleticism to move around.
Such a good way
when we talked about those other guys in the AFC, when we talked about Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Justin, those guys are quarterbacks who also have the athleticism to move around and buy time. Because as good as you are as a play caller, you can't call a perfect play every time. Sometimes you want the quarterback to be able to bail you out and erase it. Secondly, I just had a conversation with John Fox, longtime NFL head coach, who is now going to consult with the Detroit Lions. And he said the biggest mismatch on the field, O-line versus D-line. You're dealing with guys who are running 5.4 40s versus guys that are 4.6 40s. And as much as we want to think that those guys can hold up, it's difficult because you're dealing with superheroes on the other end. We have seen in Dallas, Michael Parsons doing this thing against everybody. You can't, as much as you draw up the protection, you cannot block a guy like that. So your quarterback has to be able to escape and maneuver and maybe buy some time to help the mismatches that are going on up front.
So with that being said, when we've talked about the interviews in Indianapolis and with these teams, is it more one way or the other volatile for the quarterback position to impress in these interviews than it is for any other position to impress, or is it kind of even across the board, position to position?
No, it's always quarterback. Because the quarterback is tasked with so much. So what you're trying to figure out with the quarterback is he mature enough to handle the thing? There used to be a saying that your quarterback is expected to be presidential. The way that he carries himself, there's a regalness to the way that he goes about his business, the way that he is on point, how smart he is, because outside of the owner and the head coach, he's the biggest representative of the franchise every day. Every time that he steps in front of the mic, there's something that he projects that represents the franchise. The other thing, we want him to be the leader of the team. Whether he is or not, he has to be able to really take all these different personalities in the locker room and get them going in the right direction. So when you think about Dak Prescott, there are a lot of things that you can say about Dak Prescott. The one thing that you can't question, his leadership ability and his ability to galvanize the team. And so there's a certain skill that you have to have and you have to display to be able to do that. So in these interviews, you have to have the sense, can I see this guy standing in front of the room commanding a group of men that may be significantly older than him. So it's really important.
Some of those veterans, those guys that have been here for a while. And to your point, this year was my first time really being in the locker room. And it sounds so cliche when we say it about Dak Prescott and about the quarterback position. Like, they got to be good leaders. But to witness him being able to go to one guy and deal with it, and talk to him and then go to the whole other side of the locker room, it's important. It's really important moving forward, especially when you start talking about these young quarterbacks trying to integrate themselves into these locker rooms.
Lastly, because you got a chance to see it up close and personal, Dak had maybe his worst year that we've seen.
Yeah.
But did his personality change?
No.
Was he surly and ornery with the press? Did he blame others? He didn't do that. And so what you feel good about is, he has a level of toughness that equips him to be ready for this position. And so that toughness is a underrated trait that you're looking for in quarterbacks.
I completely agree. And I think that's something that Cowboys fans sometimes lose track of. Sometimes media loses track of it as well. But like you just said, worst career year on the field outside of injuries. But then he comes back. He won Walter Payton Man of the Year for a reason. I mean, he's still the same Dak Prescott. So the fact that he was able to steady the ship from his own interior struggles is something that should be commended, and I completely agree. Not everybody is built like that, and he is one guy that certainly is built like that moving forward. All right, the panel's prediction prior to the workouts at the Combine for the Cowboys' first-round pick. First-round pick, early prediction.
Barnacle.
Oh, yeah, because this is early because free agency hasn't happened. You haven't necessarily seen pro days. You don't know who the 30-visit guys are. You don't know who a Dallas Day guy is. Who is your first-round prediction prior to the Combine? It's a great question. JD was the one that asked it, by the way.
I'm stressed out.
Okay, JD, this is a good one. So let's go.
Go position by position?
Let's go cornerback.
Corner.
First-round pick, right?
Yeah, 26th overall.
So we need someone opposite Trayvon Diggs. Because last year when Anthony Brown got hurt.
You're not alone with this, by the way.
It was bad on that other side.
Okay.
And so now, stylistically, how does Dan Quinn want to play? Do they want to be more man-to-man or do they want to be more zone-ish? Because then that changes the equation. Because Cam Smith could be there from South Carolina. He's more zone, more eyes, more of that part. But then you're going to have some of these other guys. Delonte Banks from Maryland, who's kind of like your tall, super athlete, not great with the ball skills.
Nope.
You know, he's going to be there. Kylie Ringo potentially could be there. Super athlete, great straight line speed and explosiveness. Ball skills are lacking.
But with Trayvon on one side who has exceptional ball skills, is that something that you're looking in? I mean, of course, it helps if you can have an all-encompassing corner.
Well, that corner that's opposite Trayvon is going to get a lot of work. So they're like, we saw how the ball's kind of,
no doubt,
whoever that revolving door corner was over there, he got a lot of action.
Yep.
And he'll continue to get that action. So they have to have the temperament and the length and those things. And, you know, I don't know. Like, I know everyone projects this guy to go higher, but he may end up being there because there's some people that worry about some of the stuff. Joey Porter Jr.
Penn State,
super long.
I think I would do a backflip if Joey Porter Jr. was there at 26.
The only reason why I tell you that he may end up being in the mid-20s is because when people look at the tape, they see him press nose to nose, but you rarely see him backpedal. You don't see him use other tools in the toolbox, and he's always a bump and run guy. So he might be there. And if you're fascinated by two things, if you're fascinated by length like Dan Quinn appears to be, and if you believe that you have a great teacher like Al Harris and Joe Witt Jr., you may take a guy like that because you feel like you can develop him and get him to play the way that you want to play on the perimeter.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is like looking at this cornerback class, there's only a few guys to me that stand out that have the ball skills that I guess you would be looking for. Great, good coverage, always in position, but are they playing on the ball like that? We were talking about this yesterday because I was asking Kyle, like, do you get a more conservative corner on that other side? And what I mean by that is just not as much of a risk taker or whatever as Trayvon. But then you look at my guy Emmanuel Forbes, and
Mississippi
you say from Mississippi State, and you say he is a lot like Trayvon.
Love
so
him.
do you want that same? I think Dan Quinn could just plug him in, but I think he would be fine.
The only thing I was high on him coming into the event. Now it might be line season. But then I have people tell me that he only weighed in like he was 162.
Really?
Not here, but he was 162 during the season, 165 during the season.
Wow.
And
we'll get it here, of course.
That made my stomach drop because I was like the biggest fan. I was like, hey, it's my guy. I dropped him in the mock draft just because I wanted the name to have it because the ball skills that you talk about, I don't know if there's a better guy that plays with his eyes than him. Like, Devon Witherspoon should be long gone from Illinois. Nice. But Emmanuel Forbes, his ability to play, because I wrote that in my notes, not only can he play press, but he plays cover zero, where he's on the island, he's making plays. I want to say he had 4 pick sixes during his career. Like, this dude is fantastic. But they said, Buck, the size and the tackling could be issues. So his size thing is significant, like how much he weighs in at. We need him to come in a little thicker because now Witherspoon is 180, but 180 is a lot different than 165.
No doubt. And the Cowboys are known for wanting to have some
weight on them.
Some size.
It hurt my feelings.
It hurt mine too.
It hurt me. My first round pick that I could see there being there because of the quarterback stuff and all that stuff. Avila from TCU. Steve Avila from TCU. I think that the Cowboys could definitely benefit from his play, the flexibility, especially at guard right now. We're looking at I don't really know. We don't know if McGovern's going to come back this year. It feels like,
because Connor McGovern's an undrafted free agent. Tyron Smith, of course, is Stephen Jones backed up Tyron Smith. He says he expects him to be back this upcoming year.
Yeah.
But that's still a big question mark, too.
He's always been hurt, though.
Yeah.
Like
18 games over the last 3 years.
I mean, so you keep counting on a guy who's always hurt. At some point, you have to have like the replacement ready. And Tyler Smith did a really good job when he had an opportunity. But what does that look like? Because the other thing we talk about Dak Prescott, because we have to spend it forward. You want to get return on the investment. You got to protect him up front.
Yes.
And when the Cowboys have been at their best, they've been able to run the ball when they want to run it. They've also been able to throw off play action. You got to have the fortress up front to be able to do that.
And to your point, interior pressure is something that, especially come off a thumb or stuff like that, is something that Dak Prescott that's not one of his favorite things, I want to say, is the interior pressure, especially with the escapability. But with the first-round pick, Cowboys typically hit on the first-round picks with offensive line.
Especially offensive line.
They have in their mind that if it's a first-rounder, this guy's probably going to work. And that's why I believe that possibly Steve Avila could be a guy that they take.
Well, it makes sense the way that you're thinking, because the first thing that you have to do is you got to win the division. Well, we're coming off a year in which the Philadelphia Eagles had 70 sacks. No one could block them up front. And you saw firsthand what it looks like when you're unable to protect the quarterback against that team. So the only way you can do it, you have to be able to beat them in the trenches. And so maybe investing in an offensive guard, an offensive lineman up there, gives you the ability to go toe-to-toe with the team that now wears the crown in the NFC, and that would be the Eagles.
There's another piece of content. Wears the crown.
Where's the crown? Lean in.
They're the NFC champs.
You have to lean in like that, Bucky.
That's the thing, though, is offensive line. I think it's a bigger need than people really realize.
Yes.
And I think overall, your first, second, or third round pick, I would really, I'm not going out on a limb here. There's going to be an offensive lineman in the first 3 rounds for the Cowboys, because they need to, like you said, beat some of those teams that are just beefy up front, that they have that pass rushing ability. Washington's in there, too. They've got a great front line, too.
Look at the team. So let's look at the team that where they bowed out, the San Francisco 49ers, and what they have up front. I mean, you talk about physicality, being able to win in the trenches. I think now, the more that I talk to you guys, like that might be the move. The move might be to double up on the offensive line, because you also said they've had a lot of success. Whoever is in charge of finding their offensive linemen, they've done a really good job of doing it. And so maybe you lean more into that, because one thing that you cannot do in the first round, you can't have an egregious miss.
No.
And the Cowboys have proven that they are able to find linemen in the first round, so maybe you go back and do it.
So this is a general NFL question. Ari asked, if you're Chicago, and of course there have been some rumors that they could trade out of the first overall pick, would you do it before the draft, or would you do it the night of the draft, or right up next to it, in order to kind of have the most leverage all the way through?
Give us you, Bucky.
So there are a few different ways, if you're Chicago, the way you want to leverage this.
Okay.
So a lot of it will be determined. You have to wait until after the combine, because you have to see if anyone's going to fall in love with the quarterback, because that will drive the interest in the number 1 pick. If you get teams that are interested in the number 1 overall pick, now you have to figure out, okay, what do we want to do? Do we want to let the Colts move up from 4 to 1, retake their 4th, and then continue to trade down so we accumulate all of these picks to rebuild the team? Because for the Bears, one player is not going to bring them right back. They have to have multiple blue chip players to close the gap on the competition. And so, look, you do it when the deal is right. Normally, the closer that you get to the draft, deadlines kind of bring about movement. I would expect if they're going to move the pick, they have to move it fairly early up.
Yeah.
This maybe is a sidebar, but with what's going on with the Bears with Justin Fields, he's already 2-3 years in.
2 years in.
2 years in, and they are really in a, like you said, like one guy's not going to do it, 2 guys might not do 3. They're gonna have to attack free agency heavily and draft well. With that being said, how do you handle him? Do you keep him there while you're rebuilding? Because you don't want to, especially with how he plays the game, especially with how mobile he is and his athleticism. Do you want to waste what his young years with rebuilding? Like,
rookie
how would you attack
years.
that? Yeah, out of curiosity.
Look, I think he plays how he plays. And
I love how he plays.
The way he plays quarterback, you got to do that. I think with Jalen Hurts going to the Super Bowl, I think it makes Justin Fields' style of play, it kind of makes it irrelevant because you've seen a team go to the Super Bowl with a player playing like that. So he can continue to do that. The thing about Justin Fields, you have to take Justin Fields versus this class. So if Justin Fields was in this class, how would he stack up compared to C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis, and those other guys? And unless you feel those other guys are better or significantly better, you stay the course with him. Yes, at some point you would love to reset the rookie clock, but you don't give away a good player to then go kind of wandering in the wild trying to find another quarterback that may be as good as him.
Tracking that, I more so just worry about. I mean, granted, like you said, like Jalen still was, if I'm understanding, he still played injured, correct? So, and Justin dealt with quite a few injuries this season as well. And I think that the mobile quarterback is kind of what people are improvising, and that's fantastic. With how much, like you said, especially on the offensive side of the ball, they need offensive line, they need receivers. How you can't change that quickly. So do you just go through the change with him, or? I
think you have to go through the change with him because what you're hoping is that he can continue to improve and get better. The league is where it's hard for a quarterback to stay healthy. You saw 70 different quarterbacks
so crazy
play, and so whether you play in the pocket, outside the pocket, whether you're a runner or just a thrower, if you get hit, you're gonna get hurt at quarterback. Like that's just kind of the reality of the situation. And so, what you would like to do is you like to hedge against your bet. So you want to make sure that you have a backup in place that can play, and then you want to continue to surround him. The thing about the Bears, they're so far away in a few different areas. Defensively, they traded away two of the top players, Robert Quinn and then Roquan Smith in the middle of the year. So they have to really upgrade it. They're going to have to upgrade it. They have a lot of cap space, but the odds of spending the cap space in free agency, drafting and hitting all the players, it's unlikely. But I think your best course of action is to continue along with Justin Fields as your quarterback.
Thank you.
It's interesting to think about because, we talked about the value of drafting a quarterback consistently, even in the Cowboys scenario where you have a Dak Prescott that you can rely on as a franchise quarterback. It brings that value up when you bring out the number of 70 quarterbacks playing because it certainly is something to keep in mind. Tax season can be more stressful than last-second Hail Mary with the game on the line. Overcome your taxiety today with Liberty Tax, a proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Book an appointment at libertytax.com/Cowboys.
You reminded me, man.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, every time I read it, I'm like, all right, got to get back to Liberty Tax. Big Liberty Tax guy?
Big time. Why not? Like taxes.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of being grown.
I wouldn't want to do them by myself.
Yeah, right. Yeah. LibertyTax.com/Cowboys. You got a little deal there, too. All right, when we come back here on the Draft Show, we're going to wrap things up with Bucky Brooks. We're going to get his final thoughts on what the 2023 class looks like, maybe some other names to watch out for as we wrap up with more of the Draft Show right after this.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Blockchain.com is one of the most trusted ways to buy, sell, and trade crypto. Whether you're always on the go or stay closer to home, Blockchain.com is just a few taps away. Put the power of crypto in your pocket, so no matter where you are, you can trade on your terms and build a crypto portfolio to fit your life. For crypto pros, rookies, and anyone in between, Blockchain.com makes it easy to own a piece of the future. Blockchain.com, trusted by millions, trusted by America's team.
In a stressful world, Lincoln provides balance and calm amidst the chaos by creating sanctuaries that move you through the world with ease. Our vehicles make your time richer and more uplifting with human-centric design, intelligent technology, and powerful performance. As the official luxury vehicle of the Dallas Cowboys, driving a Lincoln is just another way to show your team pride. Experience our full lineup of luxury vehicles, including the Corsair, Aviator, Navigator, and Nautilus at Lincoln.com.
What do you call a group of grown men and women with their faces painted silver and blue who get together every week to share a 3-hour-long ritual of jumping, sinking, and toasting Miller Lite in 10-gallon hats while yelling, "How about them Cowboys?" You call it Miller Time in Dallas. Here's to the Cowboys. Here's to the original light beer. It's Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. 2021 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with pre-game sideline access and photo ops with current players, cheerleaders, and Cowboy legends. You want to stay at a team hotel, attend the best tailgate party in Texas, tour the Star, and talk X's and O's with me, Everson Walls? With Star Sports Tours, you can. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
The most action-packed motorsports experience in the world returns to Arlington this Saturday. Head to AT&T Stadium on March 4th for Monster Jam. Tickets are now on sale at SeatGeek.com, the official ticketing provider of AT&T Stadium. Welcome back into the Draft Show, presented by Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. It's Miller time, and it's draft time here from the Combine in Indianapolis as we wrap up the final segment with Aisha Morrison, Bucky Brooks. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Bucky, before we get into this final segment, where can we find you? You're on the NFL Network quite often. Where are some of the next spots? What's on the horizon for you throughout draft season?
Well, throughout the Combine, you get a chance to see me on NFL.com. We'll do a digital show called Combine Today.
Wow.
We'll preview all the action that's about to take place over the next 4 days. And then after that, NFL.com, we got Path to the Draft coming up in April.
Nice.
So we have like a month-long run of shows talking about the draft and all the prospects and that stuff. And then you can always read all the articles on NFL.com as well.
And he does some work with DallasCowboys.com as well throughout the season, throughout the draft process. We love ourselves some Bucky Brooks, so be sure to follow him on everything that he's doing. He's on Twitter as well. All right. Last couple seconds of the show, or last couple minutes, not seconds. I'm not going to make it stressful like that. But when we get into the nitty-gritty of this draft class, both of you have watched a boatload of film, ton of film, around these draft prospects. Who's been your favorite film watch so far?
Barnacles.
I'll start with Bucky, because Aisha, we've at least heard some of your pet cats, some of your favorites. Who's been your best cat? Let's do that. I should have just phrased it as pet cats.
The running back from Tulane.
Tajay Spears.
Tajay Spears is one of my guys. He's one of my favorites.
He's one of mine too. I think he's
gonna be a handful. And you put him in and let him go, and you think about the success that Tony Pollard has been able to have in the National Football League as that explosive back. I think he has all of that. He can catch the ball out the backfield. He's electric. He left a lasting impression with his big game against USC at the end. He's the one that's one of my faves.
He's a fun one. I was at that USC, the Cotton Bowl. It was at AT&T Stadium.
Wore them out.
My goodness, it was next level. Phenomenal stuff.
You go, Kyle.
You want me to go?
Please, you go. I know you
man.
hosting and stuff, but you go.
I've always been one that likes the Jordan Addison, the Jackson Smith and Jigbas. It was funny. I was talking yesterday with somebody, and they said, where do you think the Cowboys, under the radar, what do you think their first-round pick would be? Not your prediction, but what would be one to watch out for? You mentioned wide receivers earlier. You mentioned CeeDee Lamb and then drop off to Michael Gallup at that number 2 spot. I think you go and get wide receiver talent at some point. They did it last year. They waited on Jalen Tolbert. They felt really good about that. I haven't given up on Jalen Tolbert yet.
They need a brand name, but they need somebody early.
Jordan Addison, USC, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ohio State. You talk about technical route runners; those have been fun. And I used to really get on to David Hellman on this trip specifically. I remember getting on to Hellman when we were sitting at one of these tables on Radio Row, and I was like, "Dude, you can't always take a wide receiver. You can't always tell me the Cowboys are going to take a wide receiver." And here I am talking about a wide receiver, a couple wide receivers that I really like in the first round.
It's funny that you talk about those two guys because Jackman Smith. Enigma. People, I think, have forgotten about. Like, I know he didn't play much at all this year, but the year before, he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he is an outstanding route runner. I think
he's 347 against the Rose, or the Rose Bowl.
He's the best in the draft in terms of just like running around, getting open, creating separation, being able to get busy. He can do it. I will say this. Zay Flowers has a very soft spot in my heart in terms of just
Boston College,
being a big-time playmaker. He reminds me a lot. He reminds me of A.B. Antonio Brown without the craziness. Like, I don't think he has all the crazy stuff. But when you watch him run routes and get down and he catches the ball on the run, he is a problem.
Sidney Brown from Illinois is going to be a
Wow.
corner that is going to get on people's nerves. I love his versatility. We talked about how much experience matters. This is a 5-year starter. This is a guy that understands the game. He can play from different spots, but I really feel like I call him Swiper. I call him Swiper because I feel like you can he's because of his size, you can miss him. You can miss him, not see him. I think he's going to make a difference on a team when he comes in. He's a smart player, but I love his eyes and how he plays the ball. Yeah.
Do we get the brother for free? It's like buy one get one.
Now you know we can't be doing that.
We can't.
That's what we tried with Trayvon a couple years ago. We're still working on it. We're still trying to get that one too.
But yeah, he's an impressive player to me, and especially with the versatility to maybe play some outside as well if he gets the coaching to do it. That being a sure nickel in this league has value. Being able to play in the box and stuff. Yeah, I love him.
Well, I think that's the other thing you talk about. Like one of the things that stands out this draft. All the safeties are nickel guys.
Yeah, they are.
There aren't pure safeties in this class. All those guys play the star position that was popularized in Alabama. All those guys are basically nickel corners that can hit and blitz off the edges. And so it is hard to find a pure center field safety. But, yeah, the nickel position that you talk about, everyone is looking for those guys that have that versatility to go inside and work the slot.
Would you – I can't believe I'm asking this question still. Would you take a first-round running back at 26? Say Bijan Robinson's there at 26. Would you make that pick?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll run the card up.
Okay.
I'm still.
Yeah. What about Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama?
Jahmyr Gibbs. So here's the thing that I think some people are missing about the first round running back compared to the mid-level guys.
Okay.
How many mid-level guys have been the guy beyond 3 years? So what happens is you get a flash in the pan, a guy that can do it for 1 year, whatever. The difference is your first round back, your workhorse back, he's a dude who has always been the dude, who is comfortable being the dude, comfortable being the workhorse. Even when Ezekiel Elliott has kind of come back to the pack, there's still something about him as the lead guy. And remember, this 7 or 8 for Zeke?
Year?
Yeah.
Years. We're going into year 8.
Year 8.
Yeah.
So those first 5 years were pretty solid. So I think what you're looking for, if I'm gonna get a back, I'm gonna get a back. I don't want to keep having to recycle or whatever. Like I'm not a guy that likes to go and buy used cars. I'm gonna go get a car. I want a car. I want a nice new car. I want all the bells and whistles. I don't want to have to shrimp like it's now changed. I don't want to be like, oh, I got Blu-ray in my car as opposed to the latest technology. I want all the stuff. I want all the stuff. And so Bijan Robinson is there. To me, that would make so much sense because there's something about not only like the talent, but the size.
Yeah.
At some point, you got to have a big back. The big back wears down the defense. You still need a big back.
It continues to split Cowboys Nation.
I mean, and when you talk about Mike McCarthy and kind of what he looks for in running back, it's kind of weird because there were instances where he had power guys, but he also had a guy that could catch the ball out the backfield, be shifty, and things like that. So to balance things out with a TP who franchise tag might be important moving forward.
So it's funny because I don't know if I can't remember if Skip shared this with me, if he shared this with everybody. He talked about the difference between Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. And he talked about Ezekiel Elliott being that big old sedan.
Yep.
Big old heavy sedan that, hey, you drive that car every day. Whereas TP's the one, he's like your little fast little Cadillac that you take out on Sunday. You drop the top and do that. But if you ask him to do the heavy lifting, it's not really what he does. And I think I always want Tony Pollard to be at his best. So I don't want to change his role and give him more responsibilities and potentially take away from makes him special. So I'm looking for the guy that can be the replacement to Zeke Elliott, who can do the heavy, short yardage, 4-minute stuff, whatever. It may not need to be a first-round back.
Sure.
But at some point they need the banger to do that so TP can continue to do what he always does.
So you heard it from Bucky Brooks himself. It's either Bijan Robinson or Tajay Spears. They're both going to have a Cowboys star on their helmet. It's going to be fantastic. Why not? Let's make it happen.
Throw in some wideouts, too. No linemen. No linemen. Let's just go all skill guys.
No.
Nobody wants to talk about the other guys. All skill guys.
I'm waiting for the fist pump. I got the fist pump. There you go. Yeah. Both of you. Because, skill guys, I'm always here.
All skill guys.
All right. Bucky, thanks so much for doing this. This has been a ton of fun. I'm sure we'll catch up with you down the line. Good luck the rest of the way, not only throughout the combine, but, of course, throughout the draft process as well.
Cool. It was fun. Thanks for having me.
All right. That does it for us here on the Draft Show. Stay tuned. DallasCowboys.com. We've got more content from Indianapolis coming your way very, very soon. For Aisha Morrison and Bucky Brooks, I'm Kyle Yeomans. That's the Draft Show presented by Miller Lite.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
champion Cowboys!